The last rays of the setting sun painted the ruins of old Chicago in hues of amber and gold. Colonel Nova Reed stood at the edge of the underground bunker entrance, watching as darkness claimed the abandoned cityscape. 50 years after the Juno Accords, Earth had become a shadow of its former glory. Scattered settlements, overgrown metropolises, and the absence of unified military forces characterized humanity's homeworld in 2287. Nova turned from the view, adjusting the collar of her tactical suit as she descended into the Phoenix base. The bunker buzzed with activity despite the late hour. Maps and holographic projections lined the walls of the command center, displaying various parts of Earth's surface and near-orbit space. Intelligence officers moved between stations, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of screens. "Colonel, we've received the latest transmissions from Luna Base," Major Marlowe Choi said, approaching with a data tablet. His slender fingers tapped the screen, bringing up encrypted communications. As Nova's intelligence chief, Choi had a talent for extracting meaningful patterns from seemingly random data. "The Council ships are maintaining position behind the moon. They're being careful to stay out of Earth's direct observation range." Nova nodded, taking the tablet. "They think we're blind. That's good." The Phoenix Resistance Force had been operating in secret for nearly a decade, preparing for the day they knew would eventually come. When the Interplanetary Council had forced Earth to sign the Juno Accords after the Resource Wars, they had effectively neutered humanity's ability to defend itself. No standing armies, no weapons development, limited space travel, all under the guise of preserving peace. "Any word from the underwater colonies?" Nova asked, scanning through the reports. "Mariana Base confirms full operational status." Lieutenant Colonel Amina Zed replied from her station. The disruption systems engineer barely looked up from her complex calculations. "Atlantic Hub reports some interference in their communication arrays, but nothing critical. They believe the Council might be running scanning sweeps." Nova frowned. "That's earlier than expected." The Resistance had established bases underwater and in remote regions precisely to avoid detection. The Phoenix network consisted of former military personnel, scientists, and citizens who refused to accept the Council's subjugation disguised as benevolence. While most of humanity lived in controlled space habitats or in the few approved Earth settlements, the Resistance maintained that the surrender had been premature and possibly orchestrated. "Have all units maintained communications blackout except for emergency protocols?" Nova ordered. "If they're scanning, we need to stay silent." The atmosphere in the command center grew tense. Everyone knew what increased Council activity meant. For years, the alien races that formed the Interplanetary Council had been discussing Earth reclamation projects, claiming that humans had proven themselves too violent to be trusted with their own homeworld. The Council's propaganda portrayed humans as primitive, destructive beings who needed guidance and restrictions. Nova moved to the central holo table, where a three-dimensional map of Earth glowed. Red markers indicated confirmed Council scout vessels, while blue dots represented Phoenix bases and allied settlements. "Colonel," a voice called from the communications station. "Priority transmission from Global Resistance Command." Nova strode across the room. Accepting the secure headset, the voice of General Huang, the Resistance's overall commander, came through clearly despite the heavy encryption. "Phoenix Leader, this is Bastion. We have confirmation. The Council has officially announced the Earth Reclamation Initiative to begin within 48 hours. All Resistance cells are to activate Contingency Protocol Delta. I repeat, Contingency Delta is now active." Nova's grip tightened on the headset. "Understood. Bastion, Phoenix acknowledges Delta Protocol. We're ready." The communication ended, and Nova turned to face her team. The command center had fallen silent, all eyes on her. "It's happening," she announced. "The Council has dropped the pretense. They're coming to take Earth, officially this time." Major Choi straightened his posture. "Orders, Colonel?" Activate all sleeper cells. Wake our agents in the orbital habitats. I want every piece of intelligence on the Council fleet composition, landing zones, and command structure. Nova's voice grew harder with each word. Contingency Delta is clear. Resist at all costs. We will not surrender our home without a fight. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as officers rushed to their stations. Battle plans that had been refined and rehearsed for years were now being implemented. The Phoenix Resistance had always known this day would come, and they had prepared accordingly. "Colonel," Lieutenant Colonel Zed called out, "I've completed the final calculations for Project Blackout. The disruption field generators are ready for deployment." Nova nodded appreciatively. Project Blackout was their ace, a technology developed in secret that could potentially neutralize the Council's advanced guidance and communication systems. It was untested on a large scale, but theoretical models showed promise. "Have the generator modules distributed to all strike teams," Nova ordered. "We'll need to position them strategically once we confirm the Council's approach vectors." As her team dispersed to carry out their assignments, Nova retreated to her private office. The small room contained little more than a desk, a cot, and a wall of monitors. She activated her personal terminal and pulled up the file labeled Phoenix Directive. The document outlined the Resistance's ultimate goal, not just to repel the Council invasion, but to re-establish humanity's sovereignty. For too long, humans had accepted the narrative that they were the violent, unstable species that needed to be controlled. The Phoenix Resistance believed otherwise, that humanity's adaptability and unpredictability were strengths, not flaws to be corrected. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," Nova called. General Liang Wen stepped into the office, his weathered face set in a permanent scowl. The former Armor Division commander had opposed Nova's guerrilla tactics from the beginning, advocating instead for direct confrontation. "Colonel Reed," he said stiffly, "I understand Delta Protocol has been activated." Nova gestured for him to sit. "That's correct, General. The Council has made their move. Then it's time we make ours," Liang said, remaining standing. "My tactical assessment suggests we should strike immediately at their orbital positions before they can establish a foothold on Earth." Nova shook her head. "With what, General? We don't have the firepower to challenge their fleet head-on. Our advantage is in asymmetric warfare, hit and run, sabotage, disruption. Your guerrilla tactics might delay the inevitable, but they won't win this war," Liang argued, his voice rising slightly. "The longer we wait, the stronger their position becomes, and a premature attack will reveal our strength and positioning." Nova countered. "We need to be patient. Strike when they're vulnerable, not when they're expecting resistance." The tension between them was palpable. This fundamental disagreement on strategy had divided the Resistance leadership for years. Liang believed in the old military doctrine of overwhelming force. While Nova had embraced the reality of their situation, they were outgunned and outmanned, but not necessarily outthought. "The Council thinks humans are predictable," Nova continued. "They expect either full surrender or a desperate frontal assault. We'll give them neither." Liang's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "I hope your confidence is justified, Colonel, for all our sakes." He turned to leave but paused at the door. "My forces will be ready when you call. Don't wait until it's too late." After he left, Nova returned to the command center. The tactical display had updated, showing new Council vessel movements. Their hidden fleet was beginning to emerge from behind the moon, forming into attack formations. "They're not wasting any time," Choi observed. "Looks like they're positioning for a three-pronged approach: Asia, Europe, and North America simultaneously." "Predictable," Nova remarked. "They always divide their forces to prevent any single point of failure. It's standard Council doctrine." She studied the projection of Council landing zones and compared them with the Resistance's asset placements. A plan began to form in her mind. "Major Choi, contact all regional commanders. I want Phoenix teams in position to disrupt their guidance beacons before they enter the atmosphere. Lieutenant Colonel Zed, prepare your disruption teams for deployment to these coordinates. Nova marked several points on the map. General Liang will provide tactical support once the initial confusion has been created. The Phoenix strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Allow the Council forces to commit to their invasion, then systematically destroy their ability to coordinate. Without their advanced technology, the Council species were often disoriented on Earth. The gravity, atmosphere, and electromagnetic fields were different from their home worlds. And Colonel, Choi added quietly, we've identified their command vessel, the Imperium. It's Admiral Kyle Vantis's flagship. Nova's expression darkened. Admiral Vantis had been the architect of the Juno Accords, the alien who had convinced the galactic community that humans were too dangerous to be left uncontrolled. His presence confirmed the importance of this operation to the Council. Then we have our primary target, Nova said. Let's make sure the Admiral regrets returning to Earth. As the Phoenix teams prepared for battle, Nova couldn't help but reflect on the irony of their situation. The Council had spent decades trying to suppress humanity's violent tendencies, only to discover that they had merely forced those tendencies to evolve. The Phoenix resistance wasn't fighting with brute force. They were fighting with ingenuity, adaptability, and the unbreakable will to survive. The next morning, Nova led a briefing for all Phoenix team leaders. Holographic images displayed their targets and mission parameters. The Council believes we've been pacified, she told the assembled commanders. They expect minimal resistance, perhaps some disorganized civilian protests at most. That misconception is our greatest advantage. She brought up schematics of the Council's landing beacons, sophisticated devices that would guide their ships through Earth's atmosphere to precise landing coordinates. Team Alpha will target the guidance beacons here, here, and here. Nova indicated the locations. Team Bravo will disrupt their communication relays. Team Charlie will focus on their solar energy converters. The missions were assigned, contingencies discussed, and questions answered. As the meeting concluded, Nova addressed them one final time. Remember, we're not trying to win through superior firepower. We win by making Earth itself hostile territory for them, hit fast, disappear quickly, and let confusion be our ally. The resistance fighters dispersed to their assignments, each carrying components of Project Blackout with them. The disruption modules were compact enough to be concealed, but powerful enough to create localized chaos in Council technology when activated. The first Council ships began atmospheric entry 12 hours later. Massive vessels descended through the clouds, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the utilitarian human ships of the past. They followed precise trajectories toward their designated landing zones, completely unaware of the Phoenix teams waiting below. Alpha team in position, came the first report over the secure channel. Bravo standing by. Charlie ready. Nova watched from the command center as the Council's operation proceeded exactly as their intelligence had predicted. All teams, execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across 3 continents, Phoenix operatives activated their disruption devices simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Council landing beacons malfunctioned, sending contradictory signals to the descending ships. Communication relays went silent, cutting off ground teams from their orbital command. Power converters designed to establish bases suddenly overloaded, creating spectacular explosions that illuminated the night sky. First phase successful, Choi reported, monitoring the incoming data. Council forces are showing signs of confusion. Nova nodded, satisfied. Begin Phase 2. Activate the Blinking Storm Protocol. This tactic, named for its unpredictable pattern, involved Phoenix teams creating brief, intense disruptions across multiple locations, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted, like fireflies blinking in the night. They would appear, strike, and vanish, leaving Council forces chasing shadows. From her underground command center, Nova watched as chaos spread through the invading forces. Council troops, accustomed to perfect coordination through their I-command systems, suddenly found themselves isolated and disoriented. Their sophisticated weapons, dependent on targeting algorithms, became nearly useless against the guerrilla tactics of Phoenix fighters. "Colonel," Zed called out, "we're seeing Council dropships altering course. They're attempting to establish a consolidated landing zone rather than maintaining the three-pronged approach." "They're adapting," Nova noted. "Shift our disruption teams to focus on the new landing coordinates. Don't let them establish a foothold." The battle continued throughout the day and into the night. Phoenix teams executed hit-and-run attacks, destroying Council supply depots, sabotaging landing zones, and broadcasting false communications that sent alien troops into empty areas or natural hazards. In the command center, Nova received reports from around the globe. The resistance was holding, for now, but the Council's resources were vast, and reinforcements would eventually arrive. "We need to escalate," Nova decided. "Prepare Phoenix 1 for launch." Phoenix 1 was their most valuable asset, a modified orbital shuttle capable of approaching the Council's command ships undetected. It had been built in secret over years, using salvaged parts and components smuggled from Council manufacturing facilities. "Colonel," General Liang's voice came through the communications system. "My forces report to Council troops establishing defensive perimeters in Sector 7. They're adapting to our tactics faster than anticipated." "That was always expected, General," Nova replied. "Now is the time for your direct assault teams to engage. Hit them while they're regrouping." "Acknowledged," Liang responded, unable to hide the satisfaction in his voice. "Armor division moving out." Nova turned to Choi. "I need a complete orbital analysis. I want to know exactly where the Imperium is positioned." While Liang's forces engaged the Council ground troops in conventional combat, drawing their attention and resources, Nova prepared for the mission that could potentially turn the tide of the invasion. If they could disrupt the Council's command structure by targeting the Imperium, the entire invasion force might collapse into disarray. "Phoenix 1, prepped and ready," the hangar reported. "Awaiting your command." "Colonel." Nova looked around the command center at the faces of her team. "Major Choi, you have operational command until I return. Lieutenant Colonel Zed, you're with me. We're taking the disruption module to the Imperium ourselves." Protests immediately erupted from her officers. "Colonel, the risk is too great." "We can send a specialized team." Nova raised her hand, silencing them. "This mission requires direct command authority. If something goes wrong, decisions will need to be made instantly." Her expression softened slightly. "Besides, I wouldn't ask anyone to take a risk I'm not willing to take myself." The journey to the hidden launch facility took 3 hours through underground tunnels. Phoenix 1 waited in a concealed hangar, its sleek form designed to mimic Council auxiliary vessels. Nova and Zed boarded along with a small crew of technical specialists. "Final systems check," Nova ordered as they strapped into their seats. "All systems nominal," the pilot confirmed. "Stealth systems active. Council IFF transponder online and broadcasting appropriate codes." Nova nodded. "Take us up." Phoenix 1 lifted off silently, its engines modified to produce minimal heat signature. As they ascended through the atmosphere, the vast Council fleet came into view, dozens of ships in tight formation around the massive Imperium. "Maintaining Council auxiliary vessel profile," the pilot reported. "We're being scanned. Scan complete. They're accepting our identification codes." Nova allowed herself a small smile. The forged credentials were working. To the Council's sensors, Phoenix 1 appeared to be just another support vessel returning from the surface. "Take us on approach vector to the Imperium's auxiliary docking bay," Nova instructed. "Lieutenant Colonel, prepare the disruption module." Zed nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel of the device, the size of a small cargo container. The module contained the culmination of years of research, a system designed to create a cascading failure in the Council's neural network communications. As Phoenix One approached the Imperium, Nova studied the massive vessel, nearly a kilometer in length. The flagship represented the Council's technological superiority and their commitment to the Earth Reclamation Project. "We're receiving docking instructions," the pilot announced. "Adjusting course accordingly." Nova tensed. This was the most dangerous part of their mission. If the Council had any suspicion about their true identity, they would be destroyed before they could deploy the module. "Docking sequence initiated," the pilot continued. "Magnetic clamps engaged. We're secured to the Imperium." "Begin Phase 2, Nova ordered. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. While Nova and Zed prepared the disruption module, the security team readied themselves at the airlock. Their plan was simple but dangerous: gain access to the Imperium's central communication hub, plant the module, and escape before it activated. "Security systems bypassed," one of the technicians reported. "We have access to their auxiliary service corridors." Nova led the way, her weapon drawn but hopefully unnecessary. The interior of the Imperium was sterile and efficient, with smooth metallic surfaces and pulsing light pathways that guided Council crew members. "Life signs indicate minimal presence in this section," Zed whispered, checking her scanner. "Most of their crew is focused on the invasion operations." They moved quickly through the service corridors, avoiding the main passageways where Council officers would be present. Their destination was 5 levels up, in the heart of the vessel. "Patrol approaching," a security team member warned. 2 guards, standard configuration." Nova signaled for the team to halt and conceal themselves. The Council guards passed by, their elongated forms moving with the fluid grace characteristic of their species. Once they were gone, the Phoenix team continued their advance. After 20 tense minutes of careful navigation, they reached the central communication hub's access point. A sealed door stood between them and their objective. "Can you bypass it?" Nova asked the technical specialist. "Yes, but it will trigger a soft alert. They'll know something's accessing the system, but not necessarily what or who." Nova considered their options. "Do it. We'll have to move fast once we're inside." The specialist attached a decryption device to the door's security panel. After a few seconds, the door slid open, revealing the communication hub beyond, a vast chamber filled with pulsing crystalline structures that formed the Imperium's neural network. "Beautiful," Zed murmured, despite herself. "Their crystal computing architecture is decades beyond our technology." "And about to fail spectacularly," Nova replied. "Set up the module. We have 3 minutes before security responds to the alert." Zed and her technical team moved quickly, positioning the disruption module at the base of the central crystal array. The device was designed to emit a specific frequency that would create resonance within the crystal structure, causing a chain reaction that would disable the entire network. "Module in position," Zed reported. "Activation sequence programmed. We'll have 5 minutes to clear the ship before it fully activates." Nova nodded. "Withdraw to—" A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the chamber. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and a voice spoke in the formal tones of the Council language. "Intrusion detected. Security protocols activated. All personnel to battle stations." "We've been compromised," Nova said, her voice calm despite the circumstances. "Change of plans. Activate the module now. We'll fight our way back to Phoenix One." Zed hesitated only briefly before inputting the command. The disruption module hummed to life, its surface beginning to glow with increasing intensity. "Module active," she confirmed. "Estimated full deployment in 3 minutes." The security doors sealed shut, trapping them in the communication hub. Nova assessed their situation quickly. "We need an alternative exit. The ventilation system." Before she could finish, the main entrance exploded inward. Council security forces poured through the opening, their weapons charged. Nova and her team took cover behind the crystal arrays, returning fire. "We need to hold them off until the module reaches critical activation," Nova shouted over the weapons fire. "Protect the device at all costs." The firefight was intense but brief. The Phoenix team, though outnumbered, had positioned themselves well, using the crystal structures as cover while maintaining clear lines of fire. 2 minutes into the engagement, the disruption module's glow intensified dramatically. The crystal arrays nearest to it began to vibrate, emitting a high-pitched whine that grew in volume. "It's working," Zed called out. "The resonance is building faster than expected." The Council forces seemed to realize the danger. They abruptly ceased fire and began a hasty retreat from the chamber. Nova recognized the opportunity. "Move! Head for the exit they just created!" The Phoenix team abandoned their positions and rushed toward the blasted doorway. As they reached the corridor beyond, the lights throughout the Imperium flickered and dimmed. The ship's artificial gravity wavered momentarily. "The cascade has begun," Zed reported, checking her scanner. "Neural network disruption at 30% and climbing rapidly." They fought their way back toward their docked vessel, encountering diminishing resistance as the Imperium's systems continued to fail. Communication devices stopped working, security doors malfunctioned, and the Council crew fell into disarray. By the time they reached Phoenix 1, the disruption had spread throughout the flagship and was beginning to affect nearby vessels. Council ships drifted out of formation, their control systems compromised by the spreading disruption field. "Get us out of here," Nova ordered as they sealed Phoenix 1's airlock. The pilot disengaged from the Imperium's docking clamps and maneuvered away from the flagship. Through the viewport, Nova watched as the massive vessel's external lights flickered and died. Other ships in the fleet began experiencing similar failures, their precise formations dissolving into chaos. "The dead silence effect is spreading faster than we calculated," Zed observed, monitoring the cascade. "It's affecting all Council vessels within communication range." Nova nodded, a grim satisfaction in her expression. "Take us home. Our work here is done." As Phoenix 1 descended toward Earth, the true scale of their success became apparent. The Council invasion force was in complete disarray. Ships drifted aimlessly in orbit, their guidance systems offline. Those that had already landed were isolated, unable to communicate with their command structure or each other. On the surface, General Liang's forces had seized the opportunity created by the confusion, overrunning Council positions and capturing valuable alien technology. The Resistance, once thought to be a minor nuisance, had dealt a crippling blow to the supposedly invincible Interplanetary Council. Phoenix 1 landed at the secondary base in the Appalachian Mountains. Nova was greeted by Major Choi, whose usually stoic face bore an uncharacteristic smile. "Colonel, we're receiving reports from all sectors. Council forces are withdrawing. Their ground troops are abandoning positions and returning to any functional transports." Nova nodded, the exhaustion of the past 24 hours finally catching up with her. "And the Imperium?" Adrift in high orbit, we're intercepting distress signals on all frequencies. Before Nova could respond, a communications officer approached hurriedly. "Colonel, we're receiving a direct transmission from the Imperium. Admiral Vantis is requesting to speak with the Resistance leadership." Nova exchanged glances with her officers. This was unprecedented. The Council had never acknowledged the Resistance as a legitimate entity before. "Put it through to the command center," she ordered. "Let's hear what the Admiral has to say." In the Mountain Base's command center, Nova stood before the main screen as Admiral Kyle Vantis's image appeared. The tall, ethereal being that led the Council forces looked distinctly less composed than in his propaganda broadcasts. Behind him, emergency lighting cast shadows across the Imperium's bridge. "I speak to the leader of the Earth Resistance," Vantis stated, his translated voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. Identify yourself. Nova stepped forward. Colonel Nova Reed, Phoenix Resistance. What do you want? Admiral. Vantis seemed taken aback by her directness. Your attack on our command systems is an act of war against the Interplanetary Council. This violation of the Juno Accords will have severe consequences. Nova actually laughed, the sound sharp and without humor. The Juno Accords? You mean the agreement you forced upon a devastated Earth 50 years ago? The same agreement you violated by launching an invasion force? The Earth Reclamation Initiative is a legal council action, Vantis insisted, though with less conviction. Earth has been designated for ecological restoration and controlled habitation, without consulting the billions of humans who call this planet home, Nova countered. Your council has underestimated humanity for the last time. Admiral, your invasion has failed. Your forces are in disarray, and now you face a choice. The command center was silent, all eyes fixed on the confrontation playing out before them. Nova continued, her voice steady and resolute. You can withdraw your forces immediately and acknowledge Earth's sovereignty, or you can continue this ill-advised invasion and discover just how creative humans can be when defending their home. Admiral Vantis's expression shifted, a mixture of anger and something else, perhaps respect, or more likely, fear. The Council will not be threatened by primitives, he began, but Nova cut him off. These primitives just disabled your entire fleet with technology you didn't know we possessed. Imagine what else we might have developed in secret while you thought we were complying with your restrictions. The bluff was bold, but necessary. In truth, Project Blackout had been their most advanced weapon, and its deployment had required resources the Resistance couldn't easily replace, but Vantis didn't need to know that. After a long moment, the Admiral spoke again. I will convey your position to the Council leadership. In the meantime, I propose a temporary cessation of hostilities to allow for the retrieval of Council personnel currently planetside. Nova nodded. Agreed, with conditions. Your ships will remain in high orbit. Any vessel attempting atmospheric entry without explicit clearance will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. You have no means to enforce such restrictions, Vantis argued. Nova simply raised an eyebrow. Are you certain of that, Admiral? After today's demonstration? The implied threat hung in the air between them. Finally, Vantis inclined his head slightly. Very well. Withdrawal operations will commence immediately. This conversation is not over. Colonel Reed? No, Nova agreed. It's just beginning, but on more equal terms. The transmission ended, and the command center erupted in cheers. Officers embraced, technicians pumped their fists in the air, and even the normally reserved Major Choi allowed himself a wide grin. Nova accepted their congratulations with a tired smile, but her mind was already moving forward. This victory, while significant, was only the beginning of a longer struggle. The Council would return, perhaps not immediately, but eventually, and next time, they would be prepared for humanity's resistance. In the days that followed, Council forces completed their withdrawal from Earth. The Phoenix Resistance emerged from hiding, establishing open communication with the space habitats and approved settlements. For the first time in decades, humans spoke freely about self-determination and independence. A week after the failed invasion, Nova stood on the surface of the reclaimed Earth, watching as construction teams began rebuilding what had long been abandoned. Around her, a new settlement was taking shape, not a council-approved habitat, but a human city designed by and for Earth's residents. General Lang approached, his usually stern expression softened slightly by recent events. The Council diplomatic vessel has entered orbit, he reported. They're requesting permission to send representatives to discuss mutual concerns and future relations. Nova nodded, gazing at the horizon where the sun was setting over the recovering landscape. Tell them they may send a small delegation. We'll meet them at the neutral facility in Australia. Do you trust them? Liang asked. Not remotely, Nova replied with a small smile. But I believe they now understand something fundamental about humanity that they've ignored for 50 years. And what's that? Nova turned to face him fully. That we will always fight for our freedom. General, no matter the odds, no matter the enemy. And that adaptability, the very quality they feared and tried to suppress, is our greatest strength. Liang considered this, then nodded. The Council taught us something as well. I think, the value of patience, he admitted. Your strategy of waiting, observing, and striking at the precise moment. It proved more effective than my preferred approach. Nova appreciated the rare acknowledgement from the stubborn general. Both approaches had their place. General, your forces gave us the distraction we needed to deploy Project Blackout. Together, they watched as Phoenix teams tested new defense systems, technology developed in secret that would help protect Earth from future threats. The disruption field generators, now being produced openly, would form a planetary defense network unlike anything the Council had encountered before. What do you think they'll offer? Liang asked, nodding toward the sky where the Council diplomatic vessel orbited. Concessions, certainly. Perhaps technology exchanges, trade agreements, the illusion of equal standing. Nova's expression grew determined. But what they'll get is the truth. Humanity will no longer accept second-class status in the galactic community. We've earned our place among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. As night fell, lights came on throughout the settlement, hundreds, then thousands of them pushing back against the darkness. To Nova, they represented humanity's resilience, their refusal to be extinguished despite decades of oppression. The Phoenix had risen from the ashes of defeat, and this time it would not be so easily brought down. In her quarters that night, Nova reviewed the data from the failed Council invasion. Their technology, their tactics, their assumptions, all now laid bare for analysis. The knowledge gained would strengthen humanity's position in the coming negotiations. A soft chime announced a visitor. Nova opened the door to find Lieutenant Colonel Zed waiting outside, data tablet in hand. Progress report on the planetary shield network, Zed explained, offering the tablet. We've adapted the disruption field technology to create a sustainable defensive barrier. Once fully deployed, it will prevent any unauthorized vessels from approaching Earth without our knowledge. Nova reviewed the schematics with approval. Excellent work. How soon can we have the first sector operational? 3 weeks for the North American quadrant, Zed replied. Full planetary coverage within 6 months, assuming we can secure the necessary resources. You'll have them, Nova assured her. This is our top priority. After Zed departed, Nova returned to the window of her quarters, gazing up at the stars. Somewhere among them, the Council leadership was undoubtedly discussing how to deal with the unexpected resistance they had encountered on Earth. Their assumptions about humanity, that they were primitive, predictable, and easily controlled, had been shattered in a single day of conflict. Nova smiled at the thought. The Council species, for all their advanced technology and supposed wisdom, had failed to understand a fundamental truth about humans. Their greatest strength lay not in their weapons or their numbers, but in their unwavering spirit and infinite adaptability. The resistance had won not through superior firepower or overwhelming force, but through creativity, unpredictability, and the willingness to take risks when necessary. These were the qualities that would ensure humanity's future among the stars, not as subjects of an alien council, but as architects of their own destiny. As dawn broke over the new settlement, Nova joined her officers for the morning briefing. Reports from around the globe indicated that Council forces had completely withdrawn, leaving behind some equipment in their haste to depart. Salvage teams are recovering abandoned Council technology from all major landing zones, Major Choi reported. Initial analysis suggests we can reverse engineer much of it for our own use. Prioritize defensive and medical technologies, Nova instructed. We need to protect our people and heal the damage done during the invasion. The meeting continued with updates from all departments. Plans were made, resources allocated, and missions assigned. The Phoenix Resistance was transitioning from a hidden guerrilla force to the foundation of Earth's new defensive structure. As the briefing concluded, a communications officer entered with an urgent message. Colonel, we're receiving transmissions from other resistance cells across the solar system. Mars Colony, Europa Station, even the asteroid belt mining outposts, they're all reporting successful uprisings against Council oversight. Nova exchanged glances with her officers. The implications were enormous. What had begun as Earth's resistance was spreading throughout human space, a coordinated rejection of Council authority that could potentially reshape the power dynamics of the entire solar system. Open channels to all resistance cells, Nova ordered. Tell them Phoenix stands with them. The time for hiding is over. Humanity is reclaiming its rightful place, not just on Earth, but throughout our solar system. As the message was relayed, Nova reflected on how quickly events were unfolding. What had started as a desperate defense of their home world was evolving into something much greater, a renaissance of human independence and determination. The Council had come to reclaim Earth, believing they would face little resistance from a species they had subjugated decades ago. Instead, they had encountered the indomitable human spirit, awakened from its forced slumber and more determined than ever to forge its own path among the stars. They had learned, at considerable cost, why one should never underestimate humans fighting for their home, and that lesson would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come.